Okay, welcome to Under the Hat this week. Percussive therapy and taking care of the golfer's body is the title of this week's session. And we're delighted to be joined by Director of Science and Innovation for Therabody, one of our partners, relatively new partner with us at Golf Zone Leadbetter. But we couldn't be happier. And also for me, I've got a long-standing relationship with Tim Roberts, who's right in front of us. Tim, how are you doing today? And many thanks for giving up your time.
No, thank you, Stuart. Doing very well, and it's an absolute pleasure to join you. I think for me as a golfer, it's any opportunity I get to work with the Golf Zone Leadbetter brand and as a partnership for Therabody, it's something that I jump at the opportunity. So excited to talk shop today.
No, perfect. I know we've got some great topics lined up, and we're going to bring to life a little bit of your journey so far to where you've got to. But just for everybody that's watching and listening, as always, if you've got any questions that you want to ask at any point, feel free to raise your hand on the app or on the screen, or drop your questions in the chat box, and we'll find a suitable point to put them in there. But as always, we want this to be relaxed, interactive. And if you've made the time to come and join us today, we want to make sure that you get out of it what you want to get out of it as well. So, Tim, you've worked in sports science for a lot of years. You're an avid golfer, but you're also a very good golfer. I know that firsthand. Probably not getting to play as much golf as you would like to at the moment with the busyness of your role within Therabody. And I know that you have a real passion of how to really help athletes progress and move forward. And, you know, how did that develop, that passion and that route into sports science? And how have you got to kind of where you are today with, you know, the fantastic company you're with and the fantastic products that are making a real difference as well?
Yeah, no, I think it really from an early age, I played a lot of sports. Sports was my life. Golf, a big part of it, but I played soccer, football, cricket, kind of everything. And then also my dad worked in the medical world. And so there was always this kind of science, medicine, and sport going on. And so pursued sports science as an academic choice at university. And out of that kind of this idea that science and can help athletes get better was something that I was like, okay, this is where I want to be and this is where I want to work. So from that and my academics side of things, I given the opportunity to work for the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, which I did for 9 years. And kind of through that experience, it was working with many different sports at very much the highest levels, whether it was Premier League clubs, NFL teams, NBA teams, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour players that would obviously come through the lab that was on the campus of IMG Academy. And I think that diverse experience of all the ways in which, whether it's kind of bringing together different disciplines of sports science, whether it be nutrition, hydration, psychology, strength conditioning, recovery, and how they can come together and learning the different ways that different sports do it. It was so exciting just for me to be able to then say, okay, this is what everyone else is doing. What are we doing really well in golf? But where are those other areas of opportunity that we can kind of tackle as golfers as well, and as professionals working with golfers? So I think that was kind of the journey, and I think I was very fortunate in that time. When you get to work with a lot of different sporting organizations and professionals, you get to meet a lot of other companies, and technology is one of those things which is kind of, as we can talk about a little bit more in the golf side, but technology has advanced so much in the last 2 decades that all these different technologies can now help the athlete, whatever sport. And so I was introduced to the team at Theragun, and as a very growing and fast-growing young company, they understood the importance of science, and I was able to come on board to how we shape that as a company, as how we've grown and from Theragun to Therabody, and what we're able to do for athletes, and importantly golfers as well.
No, fantastic journey, and like you say, really exciting times to be involved with the company that you are, because they're really going places and they've got a great passion for the innovation and the technology and the science behind it. And I know firsthand, you know, we've had the experience of using the products, and you know, I think that there is definitely a difference there, and which we'll bring to life. But you talk about, you know, the interest that you had in your role there previously, and you got to work with multiple sports. You must have seen a real difference in how a lot of golfers approach their warm up, their strength and conditioning, their recovery, and maybe the tech that they use to help in all of those areas compared to football, basketball, lacrosse, track and field, tennis, for example. Because I think golf is getting much more athletic. As we all know, the game is becoming and has become a long hitters game. So there's not many players out there on tour that you would say aren't physically in shape to do what they need to do. But it'd be interesting to get your take on the current state of golf from your side of things.
No, absolutely. And I think it's fascinating when you're able to kind of take a step back and look at these different sports, because when we think of golf and we think of the last 2 decades, we can really think about the advances we've seen in technology. You think of golf clubs, I think of, and just kind of everything we've seen advance in the last 2 decades. Then think of kind of launch monitors, video analysis technology, everything we're using to kind of better understand the golfer's swing. And then we can then we think about, you know, kind of some of the technologies that have been introduced into the ranges, whether it be simulators, and obviously GolfSong's a leader in that, or whether it be on the range, and kind of being able to track kind of whether it's just practice, whether it's actual ball flight, everything going on over the overall driving range. And then we think about maybe some of the statistical analysis advances that we've done and how we're better understanding the game. And all of that means that golf has really had tremendous technical and tactical advances. And I think now, as golfers seek more ways to improve, they're catching up on the physical side. So how do I train? How do I warm up? How do I better recover? What's my nutrition, my hydration, my sleep? Whereas you look at these other sports, they've done an incredible job of that physical, your strength and conditioning, the warm-ups, kind of how do they optimize the nutrition, hydration, and recovery, etc. But they're playing catch up on some of the more technical and tactical sides. So it's almost like you've got golf is learning from what these other sports have done on the physical side, and golf's advances in the tactical can probably be better utilized in other sports at the same time. And I think it's kind of very exciting now, because we have all this technology, we have all this understanding of the human body now that we can translate to the golfer. And to summarize it very briefly, it's the one piece of equipment that you cannot replace year after year is your body. It's probably the most important piece of equipment a golfer has. So I think we're going to see a lot of exciting things over the next 5 to 10 years as golfers really harness what the potential is when it comes to that physical side of the game.
No, fantastic. I think you made a great point there. And, you know, golf has for years and years, and I guess David was one of the pioneers really, and made golf instruction acceptable back in the day, and, you know, brought to life, not saying that it is technical, but looking at the technical side of it and looking at the jigsaw puzzle and the pieces and working out the mix-ups, the match-ups, how to put things together to get a player to perform and deliver the club in the right way to hit the shot that they wanted at the time. And other sports, like you say, have maybe missed that side of it, but been really more advanced and more devoted to the physical side of things and the rest and the recovery. I think that's a massive point that you made there, that sometimes we think, oh, golf's way behind in this area, but forgetting we're way advanced in other areas as well.
Absolutely. And I think obviously it's the David's philosophy and all of kind of GolfSong Leadbetter's philosophy is this holistic approach to the golfer. And as we look at all those elements of that holistic approach, I think even if you look at the top 20 players in the world, you'll find that, let's say you've got the technical, the tactical, the physical, the psychological, whatever. No one is good at, you'll often see people have strengths and they have areas of opportunity in all those. And it's a constant kind of understanding of where's my area of opportunity? What can I do work better, and bring this together in this holistic approach to getting the golf ball in the hole.
No, absolutely. And I think David's embraced that. You see the team that he builds at headquarters in Orlando. He's got physical specialists, he's got biomechanical specialists. Obviously now with the likes of yourselves, you know, bringing industry leaders in different fields together to really help him in his quest for helping golf progress and driving golf forward, and
Yep.
you know, helping all of the players he works with really maximize their performance and unlock their potential. So I think that's testament where a lot of coaches, I've seen it in the past, the egos tend to get in the way, and it's I can do everything and I have to do everything. And it's like, well, you can be good at lots of things, but you can't be an expert at everything. And sometimes your player needs help in an area that you're not an expert in. So cut the strings and let them go and get a little bit of help, and be part of it, help orchestrate it. And I think that's what great coaches do. They become great orchestrators of you know, what's going on around the player, but the player stays at the center. It's all player centric as well. So
absolutely, one of the things that really stood out to me over my career in different sports is you need this multidisciplinary approach, but the key is it not just being multidisciplinary, but it being interdisciplinary. So you have this great communication between these pieces. So to your point, being able to orchestrate it to make sure it all comes together at the right time.
No, definitely. And the world of Therabody, you guys play an integral role in a few different areas, but you know, try and bring to life who Therabody are and what you're about as well, Tim. That'd be great for everybody listening.
Absolutely. So Therabody, we describe ourselves really as a tech wellness company, and ultimately kind of our goal is how do we provide kind of technology-driven or technology-led solutions that help people improve performance, recovery, or their general wellness. And in terms of general wellness, everything from dealing and managing pain to helping them improve sleep and kind of helping them ultimately support kind of living their best life and living a healthy lifestyle. And I think to give some background, I think it's always interesting to learn the origin story. And I think so kind of the origin of Therabody, or the Theragun, was our founder, Dr. Jason Wortham, is a chiropractor. He was in a nasty motorcycle accident and suffering from a lot of pain himself. And when you're in a lot of pain, it's very easy to turn to kind of your pharmacological interventions and kind of take a lot of painkillers to kind of manage that. And he used some of his kind of chiropractic expertise and medical background to say, what are the solutions are there? And it's really interesting. If you look over hundreds, even thousands of years, kind of humans have kind of understood that applying pressure to the body, so massage, which has been around for centuries, has some sort of therapeutic benefit. I mean, if it didn't, humans wouldn't keep going to get massages at the spa and whatnot. And then vibration, the same. There's records in different ancient civilizations where they would try to make machines that would shake because they thought it would help warriors returning from wars and battles, etc. And I think another way of describing vibration is, as a kid, every time I would fall over, I think my parents would tell me, like, oh, rub it, it'll make it feel better. And creating a vibration stimulus can help change your pain. So he went in his pursuit of kind of this solution, it was like, well, now what technologies do we have? What do I understand? I know vibration helps, I know pressure helps. What if I could kind of have something which combines both of them? And from this, the Theragun was born. He kind of used it himself, helped himself get better, and then threw it in a cupboard and that was done with it. And then a couple of years later, he had a patient kind of coming back with chronic pain, and he was like, you know what, that thing that I made, I should try this. And I mean, from 2008 to 2015, it wasn't a company. It was just a thing that he had in his chiropractic clinic that he tinkered with and whatnot. And kind of born from that was the Theragun. And I think once the company was formed, and just in his tinkering, he started to understand that, like, this was a pain management tool, but you know what? It helps improve movement. It helps people kind of improve range of motion. It increases circulation. It improves recovery. And so this tool that was kind of very much born as a solution to help himself, it started to kind of have these other avenues and other ways it can help people. And I mean, now if you look at the massage gun space, there's a lot of them trying to emulate what Theragun has done. And I think the next step of Theragun and how we became Therabody is that whilst the Theragun is an incredible tool with so many kind of applications relative to anyone, but especially the golfer, we also understood there's many other things that are kind of these natural phenomena that can be harnessed through technology. And when it comes to your wellness, your performance recovery, it's really not one size fits all. And we can provide these different solutions. So whether it's compression and pneumatic compression technology, whether it's electrical stimulation, and kind of what you often see in physical therapy clinics, but we can kind of now bring to the consumer and everyday person. We've kind of grown into this company, which has many solutions that can be used by the individual themselves, or could be used by a physical therapist, a strength conditioning coach, to kind of, again, really help drive natural ways which technology can help that recovery, that performance, and that wellness.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to get the history there as well. I mean, I researched a little bit and obviously learned a little bit from you before, but it's great to get the full story. I think you touched on a point there. You talked about movement and range of movement and how the Theragun can really help with that. And I think that really strikes me in terms of my role within the Golf Zone Leadbetter world is helping educate all of our instructors that are at academies and instructors that have a passion for getting better in their world of becoming a better coach. And I think we all agree, nearly all golf lessons, and certainly a lot of lessons I've seen David teach, involve you positioning or trying to get somebody to probably stand better to the golf ball in some way, shape or form, and probably move slightly differently for whatever reasons that we want them to do. If you look at David's overarching philosophy, which he wrote in the Golf Swing book, which was 32 years ago now, the 3 Ps, the preparation, the pivot, and how that leads to then the positioning, but putting that all together in an athletic flowing motion that's synchronized, that's got kind of fluidity and tempo and timing and rhythm to it. If you've got a strong preparation phase and you stood to the ball well, you've got a decent grip that suits you and you can return the club back square, you can stand in an athletic position so the body's in a position where it can move efficiently and effectively. You can utilize, as we know, the ground now, etc. Then how the body moves, David termed it the lifeblood of the golf swing, and he still uses those words to this day. And if we talk about if this device and this technology can help somebody move better, there's definitely something for us as golf coaches to be looking into, because that's ultimately what we generally are having to try and do, is get somebody to move better, move more efficiently, move where the body, the arms and the club are synchronized, so we're maximizing their ability to build energy, store energy, release energy at the correct points to deliver maximum club head speed when needed to the ball. So just when you were talking about that, it kind of really hit home a lot to me about the constant messaging that I talk to our instructors about when they're going through our certification, about looking at these different phases of I guess somebody's technique, if you like. Not to say that there's a method there and everybody gets exactly the same, because everybody is different. Everybody's body's going to move differently. They've got different ranges of movements and limitations, etc. But I just thought that was a really great point that matches up so well with kind of what we try and do in our world of golf instruction, Tim.
No, absolutely. I think movement's fundamental to the movement, to the golf swing. And I think what's really interesting with the Theragun and percussive therapy is, if we take a step back and we look at what the best golfers in the world are doing, they might travel with a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a manual therapist, and so as part of their warm-up process, they go into the fitness truck, or they've got their own kind of area in the locker room, and they're getting worked on. This manual therapy, and nowadays actually getting a Theragun used on them, they're kind of creating this range of motion in which they know that helps them optimize what they do. Once they've created that range of motion, and often it's their team working on them, they will then go through what might be described as their physical warm-up. So where they're trying to activate and potentiate their muscles, whether this be using bands, or it could be maybe using some weights in the gym, and kind of that. And then they'll, at that point, when they're kind of, their body's prepared, like they've got that movement that they want, they then go to the range or to the putting green and they start their golf warm-up. They start that element of it. And so when we think of the everyday golfer, I mean, unfortunately, we can't all travel with our own manual therapist before we get to the golf course. So what the Theragun does is it provides that opportunity where it's a tool that's designed to be able to, yes, be used by the professional, but also implemented and to use on yourself to prepare that body. So we know we want to have kind of rotation at the hips and the thoracic spine. So what are typical muscles that are going to kind of restrict that movement, and how do we kind of treat that? And one of the very interesting things is we know that the Theragun, because of harnessing that technology and the frequency of the device, it accelerates that process. So maybe instead of getting kind of 5 minutes of someone's hands or different tool worked on that area, you can probably kind of put the Theragun over you for 30 seconds and kind of move through those body parts to create this very simple, straightforward, and I think ultimately something I'd like to touch on later, a convenient solution to do that. And then the other side of that, you're describing kind of the golf swing and in a coaching aspect and how movement is important. I think we all understand how closely linked the body is to the golf swing, and that when we want golfers to get in a certain position, and I know from my own golf swing and the things that I have to work on, sometimes their body just does not want to get into that position. But if we have a tool which can help us get closer to that position, and then allow us through the drills we might implement, etc., to then reinforce that new range of motion that you've been able to gain, it's much easier to do than basically fighting a brick wall when that body doesn't want to get there. So not only is the Theragun offer a potential solution, a great solution in the warm-up, but I think actually I was very fortunate to talk to David about this a couple of weeks back when I was up in Orlando at the World Headquarters, implementing it within the lesson itself. When we know that the body is the limiting factor in whatever we're trying to achieve in the golf swing. So yeah, it's certainly I'm very excited for the future as kind of this tool becomes more familiar and to golfers and then also to golf professionals as well.
No, I think, like you're saying there, having that as a tool that you can implement, in the lesson and suddenly see the benefits and the range of movement change or the movement pattern become a lot easier to get to where you want to, and then hopefully the feedback from the students saying, oh wow, that feels a lot easier, I can get there now a little bit more. And I think, traditionally golf training aids, if you like, they're always looking at certain positions of the swing and certain movement patterns, or it might be club face, which obviously they've all got their part and their place, and it's important that they're not just used as a crutch either. But I think something like this, it must be fascinating for you being involved in that, to see the results live when they happen, because like you said, there is a real acceleration from what the device does to what you can get. And I think the other bit to maybe touch on is that your average golfer generally is probably not very good at warming up or doesn't warm up. They're not very good at looking at any recovery, apart from maybe I might go sit down and have a pint or whatever. It's about educating as well as to how this can really make a difference, but how it can hopefully prevent some injuries as well. But it'd be great to get your thoughts on the results and what you've seen kind of happen in the time you've been working around this area. Yeah,
and I think we can start with some of the more general literature and research that's been done on warming up prior to golf. I mean, I know probably better than most, but I'm guilty of parking and walking to the first tee. I've done it, and even though I know I shouldn't do, and but you look at it, we know that kind of using kind of active dynamic stretches and maybe utilizing some resistance bands, etc., has been shown to improve club head speed, to improve ball striking. And we know that there's other literature on the warm-up that's been shown it reduces injury risk. I think fundamentally because it helps improve the movement. And so in the most simple terms, the right parts of the body are moving and they're taking stress off the areas of the body that shouldn't be moving. And for the Theragun, I mean, it's very interesting because it can accelerate that process. It can be implemented as part of that physical warm-up. And it kind of, we're seeing whether it's people actually, whether it's kind of custom fitting and kind of club fitting scenarios, and people are implementing it there, because oftentimes an average golfer goes to get fit for a new set of golf clubs, they're probably going to hit more golf balls than they ever normally hit in that session. They're going to get super tired, and they typically are driving, and then they're showing up, and the first 10 minutes are wasted as they kind of, in the simulator or whatever, they're taking a few golf swings. And we're seeing tremendous feedback from people saying, oh, we're not wasting the first 10 minutes of our fitting sessions anymore. The golfers are immediately kind of seeing improvements in their club head speed and their consistency, so that we have a much more efficient and effective fitting scenario. We've got our tour players that are kind of talking very highly about that it's an essential part of their routines prior to it. And then, I mean, I'm fortunate that I play with a range of golfers, some very good ones, some ones that have got a bit of work to do, but it's the average. When you think of the average golfer, oftentimes their biggest concern when they don't understand how to warm up, but their biggest concern is my lower back is sore, it's stiff, and they hear and see that you should warm up, and they see people doing these strange stretches on the driving range, and it kind of looks embarrassing and they don't want to do it. But then I've got friends that now it's oh my goodness, I can just take this out my golf bag and I can kind of work these different areas, and putting the tee in the ground now on the driving range or on the first tee feels so much easier, and for them it makes the game more enjoyable, because they're not having to play through that pain. So it's a unique tool because it really has the opportunity to help such a range of golfers.
I think, like you said, that comes back to what you said before, was the convenience, wasn't it? And if you look at your average golfer, I mean, especially living in Scotland here, I know for a fact that still the average age of a male golfer member of a golf club is still around 50 years old. Handicap is still just over 18. It might be a little bit less with the new handicapping system, but it was. And for the ladies' game was, around that age mark, but slightly higher in the handicap. You look, majority of people now live quite a slower lifestyle in terms of they're not out and about and active as much, and they're sat down a lot more. And especially over the past year and a half, I think a lot more people have become that way because it's been what they've been confined to. And apart from a daily walk, it's been a challenge. And I think that's the challenge that I see in certainly some of the people that I work with, that they live a busy working life. They sit at a desk a lot. They're very rounded on their shoulders because they're at a keyboard most of the time. Their posture's not great. They're tight and sore in the lower back. Like you said, just putting the tee in the ground on the first tee or on the practice tee sometimes is, oh, George, you feel it today. And if we can find anything as coaches to help relieve that and give them some more range of movement, some freedom, and like you say, prevent the injury and take stress away from the areas that shouldn't be stressed, I think it's definitely something that we need to be aware of and as coaches be educated in. And I think, something I speak a lot with our coaches about, and I know David's, and we've increased our knowledge in the certification in this area, and together with you guys, I'm sure we'll go to another level. But, golfers, as we've said, golf coaches, as we said, they talk a lot about how the body moves with golfers and the pivot, etc., etc. But how well do we really know how the body's designed to move? I mean, I certainly know I won't know as well as you know, because it's your field of expertise. But surely, if that's what we're asking people to do every day in most of our lessons, we need to be better educated at that. The same as if you're teaching juniors, you need to be better educated about how to engage them and motivate them and inspire them, and how to educate the parents to provide the best opportunity and environment for them as well. And that's our duty. That requires a special mindset and a special education program, which I know we've spent time developing. But I think it's a key point that we talk about, and something that shouldn't be overlooked. And I think a lot of it then comes to, there's the warm up, but we all know that recovery in performance sport is massive. You need to be able to educate people that sometimes taking a bit of time off is important. You do need to recover. How does the Theragun really help and aid in recovery as well?
Yeah, no, I think what's to take one step back before we discuss the Theragun and that its kind of role there. I think it's very interesting to look at the word recovery. Recovery becomes a hot topic a lot, and people discuss it, and sometimes people assume recovery is it's this activity that you do after you've finished golf or after you've finished your gym session or whatever. It's that thing. It's your, I mean, it's your protein shake. It's like these people associate these different things. For me, it's a pint after my round of golf, as you discussed earlier, Stuart. But they think that recovery is this thing that you do afterwards. It's almost like there's a time point, and it's something that you do there. What I like to look at recovery, and what Therabody considers recovery, is when we do something, an activity, etc., there'll be a certain amount of time before we do it again. So if we play, for professional tour players, when they play golf on a Thursday, they know that they're playing golf again on a Friday. So for us, it might be I'm playing golf on a Saturday, and I've got to do gardening or yard work on the Sunday. So that's my next activity. And recovery is about when we do that next activity, have we physically and have we psychologically got back to a point where we can do that next activity well? And we can put, maybe when we think about our gym sessions, if someone who's enthusiastic about that and a young golfer is kind of very committed to the gym, when we complete the one gym session, will we physically and psychologically be ready to have a great workout next time we step back in the gym? Or when we play that one round of golf, we'll be ready to do that next round of golf well. Sometimes we might, when we're in the gym, and this is going a little bit kind of in depth in science, we don't want to recover as much as we don't want to have perfect recovery, because we're trying to drive adaptation. We want to get bigger, we want to get stronger, we want to move better. So we can kind of push ourselves maybe in an off-season scenario per se. But when we're trying to win a major, and we finish the round on a Thursday, we want to do everything possible to have perfect recovery, be as fresh as possible when we step on the tee on the Friday. And so when you think of recovery in that way, it's all the things you do, whether it's in the hour after that round of golf, or whether it's in the 2 hours before the next round of golf. It's everything we're doing to help us get ready and prepare. And I think that's a really great way to look at recovery, because when we then think it back to the golfer and what they should be doing, there's some very much foundations to it. Sleep is essential. Getting enough sleep and good quality sleep, nothing will ever replace that in terms of a recovery tool. Nutrition. If you're not getting the right amount of calories and the macronutrients are not kind of well balanced, you're not going to improve recovery too much. And the same with hydration. If you're in a constantly dehydrated state, if you're not replacing the fluids, you might lose. Especially if you're in a warm climate playing golf, you're going to struggle. So you've really got three foundations there. And then on top of that, you've got what you described, the day off, the rest. And within that, obviously, is very key, because you can't just constantly be on the go and expect to kind of perform at a high level. But in terms of that rest, what we're now learning as scientists is that you can actually use technology to enhance that rest. So when you're at rest after you've done something, your body's natural processes, the increase in blood flow to the areas that are fatigued and tired, when you eat, the delivery of nutrients to that, the body's constantly in a state of recovering and rebuilding, etc. But you can actually utilize technology to make those natural processes even better. And that's kind of where your Theragun comes in. That's where your pneumatic compression boots, our recovery air product comes in, the electrical stimulation, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to enhance those body's natural processes. So let's, for instance, let's say, I think through the last year and the challenges of it, I think many golfers probably had a bit of time off from the game when courses were closed, etc. They probably went back out, and you know what? They were probably sore after that first time they got back on the golf course. They were probably sore. So what you can do with the Theragun is, by treating those areas that are sore, we know from our research that we're increasing the blood flow there, we're increasing the delivery of nutrients there, and then we're going to reduce that soreness as well. And we're going to accelerate that far quicker than if you were to do nothing and just kind of rest and relax. And so as a recovery tool, the Theragun really kind of comes into its own. It's like, kind of, what areas of my body am I using for this activity? Obviously, we understand the primary moves of the golf swing, but we'll use it on different areas of the body based off our workouts in the gym, etc. So what areas of that, what areas are fatigued, and kind of treating them, it just really means that it enhances what our body's already doing and helps us get ready faster to go and perform or do whatever's next. And I think by looking at recovery in that manner, it means that a lot of times, my world of science is how do we do things perfectly, and we often get hung up on perfect, but it's more, when we look at recovery holistically, it's more, how can I build these good habits and these good routines into my life that help me prepare and be ready and just live a better life like that.
I think you put it in such a fantastic way then, and what you were saying at the end about it becoming part of your continual process and your habits, isn't it? And it becomes a way of life for an athlete. And I think, you look at the best athletes, they know that they want to achieve the very best, and they're prepared to do what it takes to get there, but they understand that, listen, if I'm continually doing the right things, and like you said, the recovery is just part of the process. And I think something that struck me there, you talked about kind of, how the body's naturally, when we are recovering, which, you stop doing the activity, the body will start to recover. And like you say, mentally as well. We always talk in coaching about, you're dealing with individuals, you're dealing with human beings. You have to always, you can have your ideals and your kind of philosophy and methods to a certain extent, but you've got to be adaptable to the individual. And I was just thinking, as you were talking there, there's nothing more remarkably adaptable than probably the body and the mind. It's just constantly figuring things out, whether you're a little bit sick and it's kind of fighting it, and it's working out how to be healthy again. And like you're saying, you're a little bit sore, how's it working out? And again, then if there's technology there that can help speed the process up a little bit and get you back to that point, I think that's incredible. And where do you see, Timmy, a kind of question from me before we open it up to some questions there, but you've obviously seen quite an advancement in not only this technology, but technology in the world of performance and sport as well. Where do you see things going over the next kind of 5 to 10 years? What do you see as kind of the next big things?
So it's a very interesting question. Technology is advancing incredibly quickly. From an engineering standpoint, we can make things smaller, we can put them in different form factors, we can kind of introduce these technologies which have therapeutic benefit in all kinds of different ways. And I think that's never going to slow down. But where I'm really excited about the next 5 years is that, and it really goes back to something that I am kind of extremely interested in and passionate about learning from the likes of yourself and others, is the coaching element. There's technology is only as great as a technology that you use. And that you if technology that sits and gathers dust it could be the most amazing technology, but if it's not being used, it doesn't matter. And I am becoming increasingly more enthusiastic and centered around behavior change. And often the coach is, to your point, driving these behaviors, these habits, and kind of helping engage with the individual, engage with the golfer, help them understand the value of it, educate them, and kind of bring these things to life. Because it's the same when we think about nutrition. The best diet is not this, it's the one that individual will eat. The best training program, I mean, I can write the most technically perfect strength and conditioning program, but it's the one that the golfer enjoys doing. It's the one that they will engage with. It's the one that they will consistently complete and progress in. So for me, I think the most exciting thing over the next 5 years is with these technologies is, and what Therabody is very passionate about with Therabody University and all working with our key partners like Golf's on Leadbetter, is how do we better create opportunities for technology to be a core part of that golfer, of that athlete's routine. And let's not only think about creating the best technology, let's think about creating the one that's the best adopted and best used and has the largest impact. And I think, to me, that's what the next 5 years of especially in golf's going to be, is because there's so much advancement in this technology, there's so much interest into the physical side and the body. It's the people that will be successful is the ones that can really adopt it. And a book recommendation, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm sure some people have read that. It's one of my all-time favorites, but it's engineering the environment. It's all these different tactical sides to how do we engage in behavior change. And I mean, a very simple but amusing example of this is that I have a Theragun on the coffee table in the living room. And you know what? Sometime, like, I have a gym in my garage that I'm very fortunate to have, and different things. But I use the Theragun more when I'm sat watching a movie, or I'm just watching the golf on TV, because it's convenient, it's there, it's in my environment, and it creates a change. And so I think that for me over the next 5 years, when we think of technology, I mean, it won't stop slowing down, and there's some very cool innovation in the pipeline. But never losing sight of with this technology is ultimately used by humans. And as a human, how do we engage with that human, and how do we truly help them get better by using that technology?
Oh, fantastic. And I think, that resonates so well with kind of, what coaching is, isn't it?
Yep.
Humans interacting with another human, you're really trying to tap into the motivations, the intrinsic, why does somebody do what they do, why do they enjoy it, and what gives them the enjoyment. And if you can tap into that, even when they're having a little bit of a tough time, you can still find a way to tap back into their motivations. And again, everything we do as coaches is about trying to create the environment and manipulate the environment when needed, present the opportunities at the right time in the right way, whether they're challenges or whether they're good opportunities to help people. There's that tweak to go different ways. Helping the behaviors develop that we know are conducive for that individual, but also for performance in the sport, and then the culture as well around it. We all know that golf teaches amazing life skills, and that even if you don't become a tour player, generally, and I think we probably all agree with this, you don't find many golfers that are really kind of say bad people, if you like. Most golfers are generally quite respectful, and they've got a decent amount of honesty and integrity. They're pretty easy to get along with, and I think the game still teaches those values. But if as coaches we drift from that, and we still move with the times, and we still keep forging forward, but we understand that the tradition of the game really has manifested that with a lot of people. And I think certainly for me, I hold that in high regard, and I know David does as well, in terms of what we do with the junior programs. But no, it's great and really interesting to hear, Tim. So insightful. And I know Frank's chomping at the bit here with a couple of questions, so I'm going to hand it over to Frank to ask a couple of questions there.
Hi, Tim. Nice to meet you, and thank you for taking for your time. And
no problem. Nice to meet you also.
Thank you. Yeah, I can listen to you guys talking all day. This is great information so far. I guess some more practical things that I'm curious about is that how could we educate the people or the everyday golfer on what specific area to treat? Kind of an example that I have, I do a lot of 3D work on the side on the computer, and I try to sit not too hunched over, but I know that my neck is extended, so that wears out, but it's mainly the chest that's super tight because of that keyboard tapping, etc. So what I've come to learn is that I need to stretch out, do a lot of back bends, and open up the chest to alleviate some of the pains, but could not necessarily be obvious to the everyday golfer. And yeah, so I'm kind of curious about that. Maybe it's a part of the Therabody University or the collaboration that we're doing together with Leadbetter and Therabody.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think very excitingly, it absolutely is part of kind of the future roadmap. We're obviously kicking off this relationship with Golf's on Leadbetter, and kind of the next steps really is some very much specifically built golfer kind of led education, not only for the golfer themselves, but also for the golf professional. And so kind of that is kind of in development in the plan and whatnot. And so that is going to be a core of it. And I think it kind of comes twofold. I think there's kind of two inputs to the system of where do you treat on the body, and this education will expand upon it. But first and foremost is fundamentally how do we move in a golf swing? So where are we trying to create greater range of motion? Where we want to reduce the movement. So for instance, we know that rotation at the hips is key. We want to kind of reduce the amount of kind of stress on the lower back. And so what are some of the what I would describe as like the primary culprits for a lack of movement at the hips? So we know kind of we sit a lot, so hip flexors, quads kind of get in a shortened position. So we have a warm-up protocol that actually I'll share the PDF file for Stuart with yourself. Maybe you can post that alongside this. But it kind of leads you through that we want to treat the quads and kind of quite thoroughly. We want to treat the glutes as well in terms of kind of activation and kind of create that motion at the hips. And then we can do the same on the upper body. You described it perfectly. Oftentimes our chest, so our pecs and our lats are what are going to kind of restrict us in terms of that thoracic rotation, extension and rotation in the thoracic spine, and also the upper traps as well. So there's those impacts from the golf swing, but then there's the other side of it is the more individualized side of it, and kind of the movement screen element when we think about golf fitness, kind of screening to learn where your individual, like we know how you have to move in the golf swing, where are your individual restrictions, where does your lifestyle, maybe before you played golf, you were a baseball player, or you were a lacrosse player, and so you've got these movement compensations from your previous life, or from sitting at a desk too much, which as a scientist I do, unfortunately, way too much. So identifying those individual kind of movement restrictions, compensations, and then also kind of building a plan on how do you use your Theragun, reinforce that movement from that side as well. So I think it's quite a complex answer, but I think I would always start with where do we want to move better in the golf swing? Simple, kind of target those areas, and where do we have restrictions and tightness from just our general lifestyle? And if you start with those two, I think you'll start to see immediate results with the Theragun, but it can then be kind of built into a more systematic approach with exercise as well.
Awesome, thank you. I guess that leads also to just another question is, what have you found that's the most underestimated body part that we'll not pay attention to in the golf swing or in a person?
Good question. In relevance to kind of maybe let's go to the training side, the element of it in terms of that, I think when you look at the research and kind of when you look holistically at how we train strength and conditioning, it stands out very primarily like your ability to create force vertically is very important in the golf swing. So I think you often, I think we're getting much better as we think of the golf world, but oftentimes I'll go into a gym setting where for me, I'm very enthusiastically want to squat or deadlift. And I mean, we can do different variations of that, jumping variations, etc. Just kind of that vertical force production. And I'll go and I'll see someone with a band attached to something, and they're trying to replicate the golf swing with a kind of that type of movement. And the transfer of that work in the gym to helping the golf swing or produce more power is very, very limited to kind of helping the golfer train to be able to put a lot of force in that direction, kind of vertical. Because I think from a neglected, and I think there's a lot of people doing that very well and having that understanding, but I still think we have a lot of work to do in that golf fitness kind of understanding of that, and how does a golfer, or how should a golfer work out? I know Trevor in Orlando is great, and he's kind of his education and what he's bringing to golf on Leadbetter is wonderful. I think we can still do better as a golf fitness community though. And then when it comes to the Theragun, I think probably the most neglected or often forgotten area is I was fortunate to present a couple of years ago at the Golf and Health Symposium, and Dr. Andrew Murray from the European Tour was there as well, and we were discussing golf injuries and kind of where they're very common. And I think one of the very interesting things is, and I've suffered with an injury on my hand myself, but kind of hand and wrist and elbow is kind of very common. So kind of treating your forearms as a golfer and kind of increasing blood flow to that area before you then start very athletically swinging something at over 100 miles an hour and utilizing and holding on to that golf club is probably something that is not thought about, but I think a key part to it, and I will send this PDF to you, Stuart, but the forearms are called out in that kind of little 3-minute pre-golf routine that we've put together.
Nice, thank you. Yeah,
no problem.
Oh, good questions there, Frank and Tim. Great answers. You know, I think really interesting to hear about the forearms and the wrists, and I think you do hear a lot now of players there that are suffering a little bit more with kind of wrist injuries or hand or kind of, you know, their arms. So definitely something that, Tim, like you said, you know, the PDF will be great. We'll share that with all of our instructors worldwide, and I think we're really excited for the partnership that's happening with yourself. We're really kind of excited about the education that you're developing, the research that you guys do in the world of not only golf, but performance sport. And we were chatting just before we kind of came on air here that, you know, you've been really fortunate to be across multiple sports, Tim, and I've been fortunate to chat with quite a lot of people that have been within performance sport and been performance directors. And I think at the end of the day, performance sport is performance sport, and we can draw so many parallels from that into golf as well. And yeah, so great information. I think, Frank, as always, you've got some really insightful questions. And Tim, we really like to thank you for your time today. You've been very gracious. It's great to hear a little bit more, not only about the Theragun and the direction that Therabody's heading, but also the science behind it and the application of that into the golfing world as well. So thank you.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and as we kind of develop and work with you, Stuart, in terms of the golfer focused education and the golf professional golf coach education, I would love to do this again, and we can kind of go in depth with that and kind of discuss some of that in the future as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's some fantastic kind of discussions and workshops to be had there in different areas. I'm sure we'll get quite deep, but yeah, Tim, we'll call it a day there. Frank, thank you for joining us and your questions. Thanks to everybody else that's going to watch and join in and learn more about Therabody and the technology. And yeah, we'll be back next week on Under the Hat. And next week will be a little bit different topic. We've got the CEO of L's for Autism with their golf program. As you know, David's taught Ernie Els for many, many years, and Ernie founded the Els for Autism Foundation. That they've got a really good program that we house in the university that brings awareness of how to be better prepared as a coach to deal with children that have autism, but it also brings a lot of areas around learning differences. And some key strategies and tools and tricks to really be able to create the right environment for people that are in your group that might suffer from a few learning differences. And especially in a group setting, it's really important that you as a coach can manage those challenges that may present themselves. So it'll be interesting to talk with Marlene next week. And Tim, once again, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see everybody next week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.